and we're doing our mobile shows in Texas. We're wrapping up our SEC Media Day coverage. We're hitting the road on Saturday to go interview nobody or no other than the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu. We're going to spoon back and get that one in again. We've kind of been teasing it a little bit throughout the weeks, but I'll give you more information as we go along. Do a little bit of LSU recruit news. Got a big blue chip coming in. We'll rank our top 8 SEC quarterbacks, and then we'll give a little bit of a reaction. We played the college football 25 game for about a week now. There's some good, there is some bad. The honeymoon is over. You got a couple of complaints. We'll walk through them a little bit. And also, we opened up the floor to you guys to ask questions, kind of get you to pick our brain a little bit. We got 3 of our top questions from the viewers that we'll talk about at the end of the stream. But first things first, DJ Pickett. We've been talking about it for a few weeks. The path it made sense. If you want to be a DB at the next level, there's no other spot than DBU. LSU's put out a bunch of defensive backs over the years, whether it be Jamal Adams, whether it be Tre'Davious White. I mean, recently you see guys like Jay Ward, Derek Stingley, but there's a common theme with all of these people. It's a Corey Raymond experience. And when you give Corey Raymond the reins, you bring him back to Baton Rouge, as Coach Kelly did this offseason, and you kind of let him just mold this room into what it needs to be. You can go out and get dogs. You can go out and attract people that want to develop and not specifically just want to go get an NIL deal or just get their name all over the internet. This kid, DJ, it seems like, he's got his head in the right space. And if you kind of dial it back and compare it to a DeCorian Moore situation where everyone's wondering, how is DeCorian going to make this decision? At first, they were thinking it was Texas, and then, he kind of just goes left field and goes to Oregon. You can rumor that it's because of a blank check, or it's because, that opportunity is going to be able to get him a short-term payoff rather than the long-term gain that someone like a LSU's Garrett Nussmeier had in the back of his mind. Really, another thing I kind of want to mention on this, too, is the fact that now LSU is pretty much blue chip U. We rumored it about a week ago that LSU is getting one of the highest average recruit ratings in any class out of any team in the entire United States of America. They have the highest average recruit rating. Also, they have the most blue chips committed to their university. I feel like this is kind of very indicative of where LSU is on their development. You're in year 3 of Brian Kelly. You haven't really seen much team accomplishments in a sense of a college football playoff berth, maybe a national championship run. The most you've seen is an SEC championship appearance. Sure, you've got the individual accolades. You've got Jaden Daniels getting the Heisman. You've got several first-round draft picks. But I think you're going to kind of start to turn over and turn the corner on what the big picture really is. You're going to be able to get these guys all on the same page. You got a bunch of number ones. You got a bunch of depth. Also, I want to note, Coach Kelly mentioned at SEC Media Days that when you're building a program out of the transfer portal and you're not recruiting the depth as he is now, it's not necessarily shooting yourself in the foot, but it's not going to get done what you think it's going to get done. We can kind of dial it into what Ole Miss might run into this season. You can't just throw a bunch of guys from a bunch of different schemes, a bunch of different schools, and a bunch of different cultures and expect them to gel in a short amount of time and just translate rather than getting a younger guy in a scheme for a few years and, kind of getting him to gel into his role. And I feel like if you look at what Garrett Nussmeier has done, and we're going to kind of segue into our top 8 quarterbacks here, I think that that's a perfect picture. I mean, we can even use someone like Carson Beck. Being able to wait your turn, being able to, quite frankly, have that delayed gratification more than likely is it's not necessarily a trend anymore just because of the NIL space. I mean, you're able to get paid, you're able to get compensated, and it's a good thing. But not a lot of kids do that long-term game. Not a lot of kids go to a university to put their head down, work, stay behind somebody for, 1, 2, even 3 years at times, and eventually get to the point that they needed to get to. If you look at my top 8 SEC quarterback list, we'll go top to bottom. We always go bottom up. We'll change it up this time. Number 1, Carson Beck. He 100% embodies this as well. He's a fifth-year player. He was the starter at Georgia. And then Kirby Smart said, you know what? Sorry, you're going to have to sit the sideline. He sits on the sideline. They win 2 national championships in a row. He's a champion. He's a back-to-back champion, but he wasn't the starter. He didn't leave. He didn't complain. He honestly was a team player through and through. Now he waited his turn. As a fifth-year senior, he's going to take the field. And if you ask me, he's going to be the best SEC quarterback going forward. And like LSU's, path in recruiting, it's very similar for his path to the NFL. A lot of people would have said Carson Beck in the first year, second year, whenever he's sitting the bench, whenever he gets pulled, isn't going to have an NFL career. Now you're looking at him in a sense where, well, he could probably be the first quarterback taken off of the board. Now, why is that? It's because he bought in on himself and he honestly stuck to the tried and true method. Develop and don't get caught up in something that, is going to wind up ultimately being a distraction. My number 2 quarterback, Garrett Nussmeier, he said it best. He told us at the Manning Passing Academy that, yeah, the NIL money is great, but the NFL money is way better. Like the long-term gain, keeping the main thing is really important. And I think that's why my number 1 and number 2 guys have to be Carson Beck and Garrett Nussmeier. Not to mention Garrett Nussmeier, he's in a great system. I mean, you've seen the way they were able to develop Jaden Daniels. Just under 2 years ago, you have a lot of people saying, oh, he's not a quarterback. Oh, he doesn't have a mind of a quarterback. Oh, he's like a running back. And then all of a sudden, the next year, he's throwing 330 yards a game. He's running for 100. He's scoring 5 touchdowns altogether, and he's hoisting up a Heisman Trophy for the 3rd time at Baton Rouge. And I think Garrett Nussmeier can be ultimately in a similar situation. And I'm not saying go punch, your Garrett Nussmeier Heisman bet right now, but what I am saying is that they do put plans together for kids to hit their potential. They see the ceiling. They see the path to getting you to where you need to be. They're not going to just get caught up in giving you a check right now because it's going to make you happy. What they're going to do is help you get that big check in the end that is, what you're worth and what you're capable of doing. Number 3 quarterback, I got Quinn Ewers. I know we've been kind of skeptical of Texas and their entrance into the SEC, but I do have to give credit where credit's due. They got weapons galore, whether it be Isaiah Bond, whether it be just that overall team in general. I think that they're going to be able to kind of poke and prod at some top SEC teams. I do think that they're going to lose a few more games than people expect. I mean, they'll probably make a college football playoff berth, but I will not jump on the Texas is running the SEC hype train. Yes, they're going to have the 3rd best quarterback in my eyes, but I mean, you've seen with LSU last year. You have the Heisman. It doesn't always translate into postseason success. Just because Quinn Ewers could potentially be the number 1 pick, it's not going to guarantee the Longhorns anything. Number 4, this is a shocker. And I might have some people raise an eyebrow or two, but I'm going to have to just have this one be a little bit of a payoff. I think my number 4 SEC quarterback for the 2024 season is Brady Cook from Mizzou. I know everyone's wondering, where's Alabama's quarterback? Where's Ole Miss? Where's this? Where's that? Brady Cook is one of the most underrated guys. Not only is he pretty much the perfect quarterback in a sense where he's the face of the team, everyone loves him, he's bought into the culture, and last year they get double-digit wins, so he's a great guy. But here is the key element to this and why I got him at my number 4 spot. Luther Burden III. I will say this, I'll scream this as many times as I have to. Luther Burden III will be your best wide receiver in college football. And if you have the best wide receiver, you ultimately have success in the passing game. Brady Cook's not going to have to sit in a pocket and make his reads and just watch everyone go through their progressions. He's going to actually be able to just send it to Luther like, screw it, he's down the field somewhere. But in all reality, it's comparative to Malik Neighbors. And I think Jaden Daniels' success last year is not all on Malik Neighbors. Of course not, because Jaden is an insanely great quarterback. But having Malik Neighbors there, the number 2 wide receiver taken off the board, it's more helpful than it is hurtful. If you're surrounding yourself with weapons that are going to be like that, and I think Luther Burden has a chance at even being a Heisman finalist. You have to give credit to this quarterback just because he's going to be a little bit of why he's in that situation. Plus, when Luther's getting those 100 yards per game, getting the 2 touchdowns per game, getting the 10 catches per game, that's all going on Brady Cook's stats. Moving forward, number 5, Jalen Milroe. And look, I am a big Jalen Milroe fan. I always compared Jalen Milroe's situation right now to Jaden Daniels because Jalen Milroe, I mean, not even just because they're mobile. Like, that's an obvious comparison, being mobile. But it's much similar to that development we just talked about, that plan, that path. Jalen Milroe, in this offseason, quite frankly, has the most to prove out of any SEC player, not even just quarterback, because last year, they get a little roughed up in the college football playoff. The team that eliminates them inevitably goes on to win the national championship. And sure, Nick Saban retires, but you got Kalen DeBoer coming into Alabama. And I don't know how many times I have to tell you, that is not going to be a program that just falls off. Alabama does not get built by Nick Saban and in 1 year crumbles. Do they have players leave in the transfer portal? Do they have recruits decommit? Sure, yes. But the system, the culture, the tried and true method that we just said Brian Kelly is trying to use in getting recruits and developing them and keeping them in that, mind frame of staying here and putting the work in, they have that there. That's been embedded in Alabama for a greater part of a decade. And I think Jalen Milroe does not only embody that, but Nick Saban himself said he just has that it factor about him. He's going to be able to change the game. And it doesn't matter if he has to throw for 50 yards, 500 yards, run for 20 yards, 200 yards. He can do whatever it takes. And I think he's got that Jaden Daniels X factor about him. While y'all watching the stream, please make sure to give it a thumbs up. Y'all can drop your comments in below. At the end of the stream, we will be doing the mailbag. We will be answering your questions. So if you have any questions and you didn't get them in on Twitter, drop them in our comment section below. Number 6, SEC quarterback, Jackson Dart. And Ole Miss does have a squad. They did add some players. Here is something I do want to note. Losing Quinshon Judkins is not going to be, the nail in the coffin, so to speak, for Ole Miss and their inevitable downfall. I think one of the biggest pieces for their inevitable downfall will be just the fact that they hit the transfer portal like a Coach Kelly was warning about. You got a lot of pieces and they look good and they look flashy and you've got the number 1 transfer portal class, but that does not always guarantee success. That does not always guarantee that Lane Kiffin and company will be in good standing at the end of the season. I think Jackson Dart has a lot of upside. He's got a lot of mobility. He's got a lot of confidence. And both of those things are pretty pivotal in today's game because you can't just have a pocket passer who's timid and just waiting for something to happen in front of him. Sometimes you just got to go get it. Sometimes if they're getting clamped, you just got to roll out the pocket and go get that first down yourself. But I'm just worried about the long-term implications of Ole Miss and their schedule. They're in the SEC West. It's really competitive. We call it the SEC gauntlet. You're going to get hit on the head over and over and over. It's an NFL-esque schedule. You've got competitive teams week in and week out. You're not going to get an off week. I just think Ole Miss might be not necessarily a little bit in over their head, but I just don't know. I'm not buying in on the Jackson Dart hype all the way. I think the number 6 quarterback isn't a bad ranking. He's right outside the top 5. My top 5 is immovable. I'm not moving anybody out of it. He just had to be right outside. And then look, Jackson Dart did catch a lot of hate on Twitter, though. We put a video up, and the thing got like 3-4 million views, and everybody's saying, oh, it's a horrible throw, it's a horrible throw. I'll be his advocate real quick. He missed the mark by a foot, 2 foot. It's a 50-yard throw. I mean, a wide receiver can readjust and move and catch that ball. Was it the greatest ball? No. Was it the worst ball? Also no. Moving in, another player, if we want to talk about people that caught flack at the Man at Passing Academy, Connor Wigman from Texas A&M. I think he flies under people's radars because he got injured last year. He got hurt in September, and pretty much that's the first month of college football. He plays 3-4 games, and that's a third of the season, a quarter of the season maybe. All of a sudden, boom, he's out. Now everybody kind of just sees Max Johnson. It's an out of sight, out of mind type of deal. And I think he's going to creep up on a lot of people. I think, Texas A&M is not going to be your threat as they once were, but they'll be able to make some noise, make something shake. And I think Connor Wigman could be a decent enough quarterback where he'll be consistent and you could kind of, what you'll expect from him. And in football, I feel like that's pretty pivotal. You don't want a quarterback that's just going to be all over the place. Some weeks he's hot, some weeks he's not. He's a streaky guy. I think you kind of can know what to expect from a guy like this in a good way. So, I mean, that consistency is what A&M really needs because in a world of inconsistency that is College Station, they need something to stay the same. Whether, they're making head coaching changes on every single sport possible, baseball, football, this, that, the third. I feel like this might be one of your mainstays going forward. Number 8, wrap up this final list. Graham Mertz from Florida. Yeah, Billy Napier is going to be on the hot seat. Yeah, they lost their big back in ETN, but I just think Graham Mertz is one of those kind of Connor Wigman-like players where you're just not really aware of him. You're not really aware of what he's capable of. I think he is a decent pocket passer. It is interesting to see all of these Florida quarterbacks wear the number 15. I mean, it's like a Tim Tebow homage, but I don't think he'll be your Tim Tebow-like player. He will, however, be one of your more consistent guys only because, if you ask me, I just feel like when you've gotten comfortable in a certain scheme with a certain coach, with a certain, I don't really want to say role because it's pretty obvious what his role is. But I mean, when you've been doing the same thing for a few seasons, eventually you're just going to have that moment where it just works. It clicks. It finally sets in. And Florida could have that moment. The second reason why I think he might be able to have some inspiration is because Billy Napier's seat has never been hotter. He's in a situation where they've gone 500 multiple times. They've clung to trying to stay alive in the SEC. And I think this year's put up or shut up. And Billy Napier is going to relay that message to the entire team. And if you're the quarterback and you, like I just said, have bonded and clicked with this coach, I feel like you're going to put your neck on the line for him and just ball out. Let it all hang. So our top 8 SEC quarterbacks, we'll go ahead and redo that list for you. Number 1, Carson Beck. Number 2, Garrett Nussmeier. Quinn Ewers at 3. Brady Cook at 4. I know. Brady Cook at 4. I think, I'm telling you, when it's all said and done, he's going to be a guy. Number 5, Jalen Milroe. Number 6, Jackson Dart. Number 7, Connor Wigman. Number 8, Graham Mertz. If you have any tweaks or any edits that you'd like to add, I'd love to hear them. Drop them in the comments or add us on Twitter. Finally, let's move into this real quick. College football 25, I do want to mention. Look, I love the game. It's great. I'm glad it's back. It's been a long 11 years, and we're finally here. Also, we're going to have college football 25 content on the way. We're going to make a different channel, though. We're going to make a separate YouTube channel. We'll probably title it something very similar, Verdict Gaming, something of that nature. And we'll move our Madden interviews with the players onto that channel. We do have one coming up, so stay tuned. I'll drop the link whenever it happens. But the two things that I want to just kind of joke about, first things first, that pocket does not hold strong. I mean, I'm literally playing at LSU, and you've got the best offensive line. If you had to ask me, if you've got Will Campbell, if you've got Emory Jones, that's literally top 2 tackles in college football. There's nobody else that's going to get in between those two guys. And then you go put on the sticks on the video game, and you got 2 seconds to throw, and you're getting sacked 8 times a game. My quarterback's neck is going to break every single play. Another thing, if you're doing Road to Glory and you've got a underdog setting player, if you got like a 70 overall, you can kiss the field goodbye. You are going to be a fan on the sideline. You're going to be spectating. They do not give you any chance. You could be down 50 points. You could be up 50 points. Guess what? You ain't seeing the field, buddy. I do love the game, though. I will say it is fun. It's exciting to just see, and it also does help, ease the, not boredom, but just ease that waiting period for college football to come back. Now you got a video game to be able to simulate and do all your hypothetical situations, and I feel like we're going to be using that a lot this season. I'm not saying we're going to simulate a LSU versus their opponent game to figure out what to do, but it's not a bad idea. One last note about the video game before we wrap into your questions. LSU went 8-0 to start in my Road to Glory. And I ain't going to say, mark it down. We did predict them going 5-0, and I feel a little bit more comfortable after seeing the video game kind of align with it, just because that's that 5-start schedule. It seems like an easy 5 games. It all starts in Las Vegas in September with USC. That's pretty much your toughest test. You come back to Tiger Stadium, you play Nicholls State, shout out Thibodeau. That one will be an interesting game. It'll be good to see them, get their bright light opportunity. But other than that, South Carolina the next week, South Alabama, you've got a little, I'm not going to say a cakewalk, but geez, I mean, it's getting there. Then your toughest game, you start the SEC play at home with Ole Miss. That's going to be their 100 years of Tiger Stadium dedication, and that's where the pot meets the kettle. That's where you're going to be like, oh, man, is LSU going to be able to actually make something shake? Yeah, you'll start 5-0. Yeah, it'll be easy, and really, it might not even turn a lot of heads. LSU could potentially not even jump into the top 5 being 5-0, and that'll confuse a lot of people. But everyone's going to be waiting for that Ole Miss game. So, I mean, I do feel like our predictions are getting a little, a little substance behind them here, but only time will tell. Lastly, let's wrap into these questions here. Number 1 question. Shout out our guy, JJ Keller. I'm going to go ahead and put his description on Twitter. Let me go ahead and see if I can pull this up real quick. It's J Keller 1, I believe, is his tag. So his first question was, how do you feel about John Emery returning? And I do appreciate this question just because, 1, John Emery's not getting talked about enough. 2, I feel like not a lot of people are looking at this as optimistic as they need to be looking at it. Here's what I want to say. If you're a skeptic on if LSU is going to be able to continually put out offensive talent and continue to perform at the offensive explosive level they've been doing. I mean, last year they were the number one offense in the country, averaging 45 points per game, averaging damn near 400 yards per game. They were beating 2019 LSU's offense in several metrics, and quite frankly, nobody, not only in Baton Rouge, but no one in the world would have ever thought 2019 LSU's records would be getting sniffed by anybody. Nonetheless, another LSU offense 3 years later. But this year, how do you keep that explosiveness? You lose Jaden Daniels, you lose Malik Neighbors, you lose Brian Thomas. How does LSU give Garrett Nussmeier the keys, so to speak, and not see any decline? John Emery returning is a huge part of that. And a lot of people are going to be confused. Let me explain. Now, you're starting running back in Josh Williams and potentially your backup, or just let's say RB2 and John Emery, are the two most experienced running backs in college football. Let me say that one more time. Both guys have been playing college football for 5 years. Your running game, which Jaden Daniels brought to the table, Jaden Daniels at any given point in time can break off for a 60, 80, 90-yard touchdown run. You do lose that, but what you gain is more opportunities for these experienced running backs to be able to hit the ground. Those rushing attempts are not going to go anywhere. They're just going to be divvied up to different people. And I think a John Emery returning is a kind of a confidence booster, just because we talked about the LSU having the best offensive line, and if it ain't the best, it's the second best. It's top three at least. You got Will Campbell on one side, you got Emory Jones on the other, both immovable objects. Have fun lining up against them. Then you put John Emery or Josh Williams in the backfield. By the way, both guys, we're talking about 2019 offense, they know a little bit about it. Both of them were on the 2019 team. I think these two pieces, not only do they bring skill, not only does John Emery bring that confidence, but he brings that championship culture. He's in the locker room holding everyone accountable. And I mean, yeah, he's had his moments, but at the end of the day, John Emery's explosive as explosive can get. And I know a lot of people are wondering, is his ACL going to recover? How is he looking? He's moving. He's been training. He's been cleared for full go. We saw a couple of videos of him, and I feel like there's nothing to worry about. I feel like he's hitting his stride. The main thing you got to worry about when you're recovering from an ACL injury like that is just trusting your body, doing the jukes, getting hit, this, that, and the third. You got to be able to know that you're 100% healthy, and you can't be worrying about the knee. You can't be worrying about falling. And I think he's fallen into that mindset. He's comfortable and he's confident, and also he's got a chip on his shoulder and there's something to prove. And if there's anything I can warn you about these Louisiana athletes, it's when they get that chip on the shoulder, move out the way. If you compare it to a Tyrann Mathieu, if you compare it to a Malik Neighbors even, there's a lot of cats that had to just make it happen because this was their last opportunity, and John Emery is in this situation. I think that him returning is a huge boost to the offense. It makes me a little more confident in them being able to move into next season and not have a decline in production. That running game has two of the best running backs that you could ask for, plus, hello, Caleb Jackson. Caleb Jackson's coming out party this season will be something else. He's going to run all over any college football defense possible. You see the Mississippi State game last year where he just completely knocks teeth out of a defender. If you got a three-headed monster in Josh Williams, John Emery, Caleb Jackson, you even got a guy like Caden Durham, potentially Trey Holly, you got pieces, and I think that you're going to be able to utilize them well. Not to mention, if that running game gets active, you got play action. Have fun with guarding Garrett Nussmeier in the pocket when he's letting one rip 45, 50 yards, as he's capable of. Side note, Malik Neighbors' longest touchdown last year, who threw it? Garrett Nussmeier. So we'll be able to see some fireworks fly. Second question, state of LSU's defense. Now, this is probably the most asked question. I hear this all the time, and I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, so to speak, but I just don't know if LSU's defense is exactly where everyone would expect it to be. Only because you had one offseason. Is Blake Baker a great coach? Of course. I love Blake Baker. Why? Because, I mean, you've heard all the stories. You heard Harold Perkins say it, and we've even posted a picture of it. The dude comes out to practice in cleats. Find me a coach in college football and football in general that'll put cleats on and work out with his players. He won't say do this and do this. He's going to do it. You're going to watch, and he you to do something that he wouldn't do himself. You can always just have that buy-in mentality. Another side note, Coach Kelly said pairing that, getting active and getting the players interested, that's half the battle. Him and Nick Saban were talking at SEC Media Days, And Coach Kelly was just mentioning, yeah, you can do the scheme, you can do the X's and O's, you can have all the talent in the world, but you have to motivate them to want to play for you. And how do you do that? You get in there, you get involved, and you show them that you're a part of them. You're not their boss, you're not looking over them. And at times you do need that authority and that command, but also at times you do have to make the guys relate to you, especially when you've only been there a few months. I think Blake Baker's track record and what he's done has been able to kind of speak for itself. He's got a lot of players at the next level. He's got a few players in this NFL draft that just recently happened. The state of the defense, though, is unknown, really. The defensive line has some talent. It's not as deep as you really would hope for. Defensive back room has the depth, but they're young. Now, the linebacker piece, that's the shining element of this defense. Harold Perkins Jr., a lot of people are worrying, oh, why is he not outside? Why is he playing inside? Because Harold Perkins' potential is that of a Tyrann Mathieu, or is that of someone who can take over a game. And my philosophy is, let's let Harold Perkins figure out what he's capable of. Let's find his ceiling. Let's benchmark test him. Because if he could play inside and he could guard in coverage as well as mixing him in a hybrid role, like playing outside, if you wouldn't have tried that, you would have never known. Imagine you just put Harold Perkins outside. Sure, he gets his sacks. Sure, he does what he's capable of, but you never get to see the interceptions or this or that. Harold Perkins had, what, 2 to 3 interceptions last year? I think that Harold Perkins was in the top 3 of LSU's defense for takeaways. What that tells me is the more he progresses into this role, the more he gets comfortable, the more he learns reading a defense, not only will it benefit him in his NFL career, but it'll benefit the defense long term. I just don't see why everyone panics when they hear Harold Perkins is inside. They are going to use him in a hybrid role. If you do not think Harold Perkins will sniff out a quarterback in the pocket every now and then, you're crazy. I think, Harold Perkins has to be able to be put in a situation to play like a professional linebacker because that's his goal. This will tie into the entire theme of this whole stream that LSU is putting athletes in a position to play on Sundays. Do they want you to succeed right now, currently in college football, get your NIL money, get this, get that? Of course. But the end-all, be-all goal is what the mission statement is, graduate champions. We want to put you in the position to be able to develop to your potential. Jaden Daniels would have never been what Jaden Daniels was if he left last season and went into the draft, got drafted 3rd to 4th round. We would have never saw that Heisman potential. We would have never saw anything if he didn't tweak a couple things, if he didn't buy into the scheme and he didn't listen to what the coaches had to say. Are the coaches always right? No. Are the players always right? No. But Harold Perkins in this situation has someone in Blake Baker who, by the way, coached the NCAA leader in sacks, Jalen Ferguson at LA Tech. Louisiana Tech Bulldogs in Ruston, Louisiana, has the player that has sacked more quarterbacks than anybody else that's ever played the game of college football. If this man is telling you, let's play inside, by all means, play inside. Because I feel like he's going to be able to put you in the position to succeed, as he has other players at schools that didn't have as much eyes. And I feel like this will be something you're going to have to keep in mind. Last question. Freshman I'm most excited for. Boy, oh boy, P.J. Woodland. I got to say it. P.J. Woodland. That's one of the young DBs that I'm talking about. Yeah, you got depth at DB this year, which you really didn't have last year, but they're young. This kid played high school football last year, turned over a 6 to 8 month period. He's playing college football at the highest level possible, which is equivalent to professional football at this level. I think what he brings to the table is, we talked to Sage Ryan a little bit about it, a veteran mindset. Yeah, he's young, but he don't play like he's young. He don't practice like he's young. He'll be the first one in the facility and the last one to leave. He'll show up and he'll jump to the line to get another rep in. A lot of freshmen might get their rep in and kind of stay in the back and just watch and be a little nervous. He's fighting for any single opportunity to show Corey Raymond and company, I'm ready to perform. I'll give another honorable mention freshman list or freshman, title that I'm excited for to Trudez Green. G Sports came on the show last week and talked about it. That dude is going to be a matchup nightmare. If you have anybody